Hello, it's some dust or something. Today I wanted to make a video talking about all the dinosaurs in Path of Titans and kind of giving you my thoughts on them, both in a survival slash survivability aspect of the dinosaur, but also coming from a PvP perspective. I've been obsessed with this game for quite a while. I've either grown all of these to adult, or I've played with slash against them enough to kind of have an idea what I'm talking about. But if I say something in this video that you disagree with, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. I am open to having my mind changed, but for right now, I just kind of wanted to get this out there, maybe to help some people along with what dinosaur they should grow next, which ones maybe they should focus on, and just kind of spreading the knowledge I've gained playing this game. I'm not going to be talking about the two Gondwa dinosaurs. I'm going to be sticking to Panjura. But first thing here, we have Alio ramus, which is a fast carnivore. Its playstyle is mostly going to lend itself to hunting juvenile players, as well as hunting things like Camptos and Raptors that might be too fast for other dinos. I do think you could also take care of things like Metris, Conchs, maybe even Megs and Ceratos, although mostly you're better at running from hard fights than actually dealing with them. You're kind of frail, your attack's not the best in the world. Like I said, you are fast and you do have good stamina, but you're really not going to be fighting anything really mid-tier or even apex. Very good dinosaur for survivability though, if you want to get a good view of the map. If you want to hunt those smaller dinos, this is a fantastic pick for you. Alright, next is Allosaurus. Allosaurus is a controversial dinosaur. It is very popular. I see them all the time. A lot of people will tell you they're not good, and the answer to whether or not they are is yes and no. I thought they were really bad, but the more I play against them, the more I realize while they're not super good, they're not something you should really underestimate. You see them and their size is pretty imposing and it's easy to get intimidated, but they're also not something I think you should fear. Allos are very fast. They don't have incredible stamina though. They're not particularly tanky. They're not going to deal tons and tons of damage. They do have a bleed, and they can be, like I said, very intimidating, especially in a pack. Although, again, I think you're going to have a hard time as an Allo hunting apexes, or maybe even some mid-tiers, mid-high tiers. For survivability, I've heard people recommend this as the first dino they would recommend new players growing. I really don't think that's a good idea. I think if you want something like an Allo, maybe try a Metri first. You're faster, you have better stamina, you're a little smaller, so it's easier for you to hide and avoid attacks. But Allo, I mean, it looks cool. People love him. I can't fault you for that. Next is Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus are dangerous. No matter what I'm playing, I usually keep an eye out for Ceratosaurus if I'm fighting a pack. This is a medium-sized theropod, around the same size as Conch and Metri. The thing that's scary about it is it's the fastest bone break dinosaur. This is a dinosaur that can run up on you, catch up to you, bone break you, so that members of its pack can just tear you up. They are a deadly combination. Fantastic group dino. Again, you're not really going to be fighting... I wouldn't even say you should be fighting other like mid-tiers, mid-high tiers on your own. You're best in a pack. Definitely not good at fighting apexes or anything like that. But like I said, you're fairly fast. You have the bone break, which is an awesome ability. Really help you out in whoever you're playing with. The Conch has fallen from grace. This is a dinosaur that back in the days before bleed was nerfed was everywhere. They're fast, they can swim, they apply heavy bleed. I still see them in packs all the time, but they're just not that threatening. These are incredibly squishy. Like, I know right here it says the defense is like halfway up the bar, but to be real with you, these guys crumple like paper when you hit them, and while they're fast, they're not the fastest. So, I think they're good. I think getting in and out of the water easily is, you know, there's something to be said for that. And obviously applying bleed is always good. But this is not a dinosaur that scares me when I'm playing just about anything. Desperitos is like a small T-Rex. Way before Rex was in the game, we had Desperitos stomping around. And kind of like Conchs, they are not that big of a deal anymore. They also have a bone break, which is cool, but they are not super fast. They're not super tanky. They get outdamaged by a lot of things. I think these are a really hard grow, honestly, because as a baby Dasp, you're kind of a sitting duck for just about anything that wants to mess with you. Deinonychus, or the raptor, the chicken, the bird, there's a lot of names for this guy, but what's cool about him is he does a lot of different things. You're not going to be doing any damage, and you are very weak defensively, but you are fast. You have a fantastic jump. You can get to places other dinos can't reach you. You can hide pretty easily. You can buff the speed of your pack mates and use your tail fan to give you a short boost in your own speed to get away from things, to catch up with things. It's pretty good for keeping the PvP pressure on people so that maybe they can't run to their home cave, or they can't sleep anywhere to wear down bleed or whatever. So it has its place in a pack, although this isn't like a very popular pack dinosaur. I don't think it's among the best, but it is fun to play. Latin is like Dinon, but worse, in my opinion. If I remember right, you don't have the tail fan, you don't have the speed buff. I could be wrong about that. But I know that its sprint is faster, and I think you are a little bit bulkier, but honestly, things are still going to sweep you up if you're playing Latin. Megalania, or the lizard, is famous for being a baby killer, a juvie killer. In all sincerity, though, it is not a bad dino to survive as. You're fairly fast, you're kind of low profile, so it's easy to dodge attacks and hide. You can swim, which is cool. You have a stamina draining bite, which is awesome. A lot of people really love their Megs. I think it's worth growing, but in a PvP situation, again, this is one of those that you kind of need a group around you to really reach your full potential. I don't see Megs really 1v1ing any of what I guess you would call the meta picks for dinos in this game. The Metri was like the Meg before the Meg. It also has a stamina draining venom bite. You are as fast as the Meg, maybe faster if I remember right, and you have loads more stamina. And that's why I recommend the Metri as a beginner dinosaur. I think this thing's great. You have a jump, which sometimes helps to get out of the reach of dinos that would do you harm. Like I said, you're fast, you've got the stamina, you've got the venom bite, you've got a claw attack if you're fighting something that's maybe a little smaller. Also, the skins for this guy, just on a side note, are really good, but I think this is a fantastic dinosaur to survive as, and I think that if you know what you're doing, you can fight off a lot of other players as well. Picno gets a bad rap. A lot of people I've seen call it unplayable. I've been told that it's really bad, and, all these things. I have a soft spot for Picno, and it's not just because Carnotaurus is my favorite dinosaur, but it's because I do think if you play Picno correctly, it can be a very good dino. You are frail, you shouldn't be trying to tank anything as the Picno, and I think the charge is overused by a lot of people. The charge, not only is it going to drain a lot of your stamina, but it also does not... Like, your turn radius is just nothing after you pop the charge. And for knockback, usually with charges, you want to stay on the person for as long as you can while you're charging, because you get ticks of damage in. But with the knockback that comes along with the Picnomiasaurus charge, you are not getting all those ticks. You've got to... When you hit them the first time, they're going to fly away from you. Because of your knockback, and then it's going to take you a second to catch back up, and it makes it hard to get those consecutive ticks in. And so I play mine without hardly ever charging, unless I'm trying to get away from something or trying to catch up to something really quick. Instead, I opt for just using my fantastic turn, because I do think they have a very fast and very tight turn to land bites on people and wear them down that way. I give it my endorsement, although... it's fairly easy to survive as because you're fast and you have good stamina, but in PvP, just know, unless you're really good at avoiding hits and attacking in windows, you are pretty easy to kill. Sarco is sort of the big baddie of the water, at least on Panjura. This is a non-apex that a lot of people think is an apex just because of how tough it is. In the water, I don't think you have that much to worry about, except for the millions of other Sarcos that are probably also in the water. as well as like speed Spinos I've heard can be a match for a Sarco. But, I mean, you've got to bleed, you do pretty good damage. You have a lunge attack that's fantastic for catching things off guard. You're pretty fast in the water. I would say when you get on land, you're going to have a bit of a harder time. You're going to be slower. Your stam drain's going to be a lot worse. And the problem with Sarco, really, is that it gets thirsty really easily, and it drains a lot of water quality, which eventually is going to force you out of the water to go find water somewhere else. And that leaves you in a very vulnerable position, in my opinion. I've killed them in groups of adolescent herbs before. I've killed it with my Metri before. This is while it's on land, obviously. But still, you should be able to fend things off fairly well if you know what you're doing. I think it's a really good dino. Hard to survive as, very hard to grow. But once you're an adult, you're good, and you can fight a lot of things. Spino kind of falls near the bottom of the apexes, in my opinion, because while it does have the apex stat total, you know, it's got the health, it's got the attack and everything. And you do have a lot of different attacks. You've got claw, head attacks, tail attacks, and different hides you can work with. I do think that it loses to a lot of the other apexes. This is one that, as other dinosaurs have been introduced to the game, has kind of fallen by the wayside. It is still super good, and I definitely think it has its place, you know, among the top of dinosaurs in the game overall. But if you're talking about things that are big carnivores like this, or just big dinos in general, I think this is near the lower end of good, quote-unquote, meta dinos. Suchomimus is a good example of a dinosaur that is good at a lot of things, but it's not particularly great at anything, because you are a semi-aquatic, which means that you can run into the water if there's a fight on land that you may not necessarily want to do. And you can run on land if there's like a Sarco in the water trying to eat you. You're kind of bulky, but you're not a tank. You hit kind of hard, but you don't hit that hard. I mean, you're not going to be doing apex levels of damage, but you're not going to be doing the damage of, like, I don't know, a Conch or a Metri or something. I think pretty good to survive as. I've heard people compare it to like an Alio, but a little better, and I think that's pretty much true. You're imposing, but you're really not as tough as I think you look. And then the last carnivore in the list here is Tyrannosaurus. This is kind of the big bully of the game right now. Basically ever since it's been added, honestly, because it is a damage sponge. This thing has tons and tons of HP, and it hits like an absolute truck. You do have a few different head slots that you can use for different attacks. You have a charge. The downsides are you're slow, and obviously you don't have a ton of stamina, but you don't really need it when you're this big and tanky and strong. I honestly face tank trikes a lot as the Tyrannosaurus, and it doesn't really give me any trouble. I don't think I've lost a 1v1 face tank battle against a trike as a T-Rex in a very long time. So that does it for the carnivores. I'm going to get a drink real quick before we get into the herbies. You might just hear my cat. Alright. The first herb we're going to talk about is Albertaceratops, which is very similar to Stracosaurus. It's like a small trike. The good thing about Albertaceratops is it's a little more bulky than Stracosaurus. You do have really good stamina. You've got a fantastic charge. I think these guys are underplayed. I do think you have a chance fighting apexes as an Alberta if you know what you're doing. Amarga is really bad, which sucks. I really love Amargasaurus, and Amarga released around the time I started playing this game, but honestly, you're too slow to run from anything. You're not really bulky, even though you look like it. You can't hide from anything. You can't outdamage anything. You do have a passive bleed, but bleed's just not as good as it used to be. So I would say Amargasaurus is if you want a challenge, or maybe you really like sauropods. Anadazo is the most broken thing in the game right now. This is a dinosaur that can make itself nearly invincible. When you crouch, you get a Fortify skill, which reduces your bleed damage and your physical damage that you take. You also have a crazy tail attack that bone breaks for a really, really long time. I think it's the longest bone break in the game. They removed Anadazo for a little bit because it was so broken, but it still is, and they brought it back, so make of that what you will. It's just really, really good. If you want to survive and live peacefully, or if you want to bait Rexes into being destroyed by you, you can do that as well. You're just not fast. Oh, wrong slider. Barsbaldia is the big tank of the game. It has the highest health pool out of anything in the game, and it can boost the defense of itself and its pack mates. It's got a killer like tail slam attack you can do, so if you're really good about pivoting and tail kiting, Barsbaldia can kill other apexes no problem. I know that for a while Barsbaldia was used as the primary Rex counter. I'm not sure you could really do that anymore. I've been seeing a lot less of them, but it is still a fantastic dinosaur. Hard to grow, but once you're a sub-adult, you should be just fine. Campto is a meme. Campto is not good, but we all love him anyway because he's really cute. I want to show you, if I can, this. You can wag your tail at people, and your calls are all like super cute. So most people won't mess with you. I've been given trophies by apexes playing as my Campto before. But even if they did want to hurt you, you outspeed a lot of things. You do have a jump. You can hide fairly well. For that reason, survivability actually is not bad for Campto. You are still threatened by things like Megs, Metris, Conchs, maybe like a Raptor pack, but you should be okay as long as you kind of know what you're doing. In PvP, you're a lover, not a fighter. You're not really going to be, you know, backing anything against a wall. Here's the Dinocurus, or the goose, or the duck, or the tickle chicken. Has a lot of names. Semi-aquatic, kind of around the same tier level as like a Spino, where it does hit really hard. It does have a lot of different attacks, but kind of outclassed, I want to say, by things like Rexes, Barsbaldia, maybe even Eotrike, which we'll get to in a second. But pretty good. Hard to survive as. Apparently people really love the taste of goose, so it is hard to grow this guy. And here's Eo, like I was saying. Eotrike was probably the scariest dino there for a little bit, and then they nerfed it. However, even with the nerf, you do still have a Sharpen Horns ability, which lets you boost your own attack. You do still have a charge that deals in ticks and hits really hard. Yeah, I mean, Eos are threatening to just about anything. You're just not very fast, your stamina's not very good, but at the end of the day, for what it is, Eo is still a fantastic grow. It's worth your time, even though it may be kind of difficult to get it to sub-adult if you're doing it on your own. Iguanodon might be my favorite herbivore. Not to play as, just in real life. Definitely not to play as, because this thing's kind of bad. Iguanodon doesn't have good defense, doesn't have good stamina. Its attacks don't deal much damage. You do have a bleed attack that you can get, but bleed isn't as good as it used to be. Honestly, you never see these guys. I've seen like one in the last month, which is a shame because I do really like Iguanodon. But that's just kind of how it is. If you want to challenge, or maybe you really like the Disney movie Dinosaur, you would want to grow one, but for the most part, this is one to skip. Kentro is a little spike ball of rage. This is a dinosaur a lot of people are really aggro as. They like to charge in like a cannonball and try to take things out. Honestly, I think you're better off playing the defensive game, using your speed to stay just ahead of someone while battering them with your tail and applying bleed. A lot of things aren't going to mess with you because it's just too much of a chore. You are super strong, up there among even some of the apexes if you're skilled enough. Lambio is the only dino that can heal other dinos with its call, and it gets the call really early, which I think is good for its like self-preservation. You're kind of bulky, and you run kind of fast, you have really good stamina, but you're not going to be dealing a lot of damage. Really, this is a dinosaur that shines the most when it's in a herd. Packy is a little crackhead. This is a little firecracker. This dude's nutty. It can run either herbivore or carnivore, which gives me anxiety, because how do you know to trust one? It does have a knockback that's pretty cool. Honestly, you're not going to be fighting anything too crazy, but you are kind of an agile, medium-sized herbivore, and I think there is a place for these in PvP. Stego is like the Kent, but bigger, more bulky, and way slower. I used to sleep on these guys, but I do think they're good. They can be apexes if played correctly. They have a cool pivot that lets them turn their tail towards something really quickly, which makes you very hard to come at. Stroothy is the fastest dinosaur in the game with really good stamina. Honestly, the only way anything's ever going to catch you as a Stroothy is if you get caught up on something or if they catch you off guard, but otherwise, I mean, you're going to survive, you're just not going to kill anything. And lastly, we have Styracosaurus, my current main. This is a dinosaur that can apply bleed. You're fairly fast, have okay stamina. Honestly, Styracosaurus is really good for a hit and run player that is good at avoiding attackers and then keeping the pressure on and wearing things down over time. But I do think it is really good in the right hands. But yeah, those are all the playable dinosaurs in Panjura for Path of Titans. I wanted to make a video kind of giving my thoughts. Hopefully you found it informative. Hopefully it helps you decide what to grow. And yeah, thank you for watching.